This is my interactive SMART file for solving one-step equations. The lesson objectives are that students will understand inverse operations, students will solve one-step equations, and students will identify key vocabulary. Under Teacher's Notes, it lets you know the subject area, which is Algebra 1, the topic, solving one-step equations. It's intended for 9th grade, and prior knowledge that's needed is students need to understand inverse operations and what variables are. For lesson notes, it gives a brief review of what this lesson will entail. Students will discuss lesson essential question on the next slide. Students will brainstorm ideas as to how they could answer the question. Students will move to the interactive word splash on slide 3. Each word is linked to its appropriate slide. The check mark on each word slide links back to the word splash. The bottom button on the word splash takes students to the post assessment that is to be used with the SMART responders. The lesson essential question for this presentation is, how can we use inverse operations to solve one-step equations? I will let the students use this as a warm-up. There is a timer for 5 minutes at the bottom. They can discuss with their group what they think this essential question is asking, and if they have any ideas currently of how to answer it. This is the interactive word splash. Right now, each word is linked to go to a certain slide. Our vocabulary words, a lot of them they may have seen before. They, of course, know what addition is. They know what multiplication is. But we need to make sure they know what it is in terms of inverse operations. So, for example, the students have control as to which word they would like to start with. So we can start with subtraction. And it says the inverse operation of subtraction is, and when you click, it would reveal that it would be for addition. Together, I would do a problem with them, reveal the answer, and then their turn, they would solve it on their own or with their group, and they had to review it as well. Once they've completed a word, we'd go back through the check mark to the interactive word splash, and students would work through each slide, going through the together, the guided practice, and their turn for practice as well. Some of them we talk about some discussion questions. So for one step, it says, what do you think of when you hear one-step equations? We'd brainstorm as a class, what are some things they think it means, and this would be a great thing to go in their interactive math journal. Real world is a really cool thing. We've been discussing, where do you see this in the real world? So the slide says, can you provide a real-life scenario that can be solved using a one-step equation? And there's a great video that students will be able to view. It's embedded into the file, and it talks about different equations of lines. Variable is a topic that students should have covered previously, and we have a pull tab that helps pull out some definitions once the students have read through and brainstormed what a variable is on their own. It's a symbol used to represent a number. It's usually an X or a different letter is used. Students get a little scared when they see different variables in an X, so we'll want to make sure that we stress that a variable could be any letter in math. And solve is a great time for them to work with their group to show their work and practice what they've learned. So we would go through each star, and they would, find out what the answer is to make sure they're checking their work. And finally, we'll take a look at inverse, and we talk about what is inverse operations, and students would be able to see, the inverse of division is multiplication, the inverse of subtraction is addition. So this is a really cool thing that students will be able to do. To reveal these, you can actually use the eraser function when you're on the smart board. And there's a really cool picture. I actually have this blown up in my classroom, and it's a good visual reminder that students can also put in their math journals. Finally, when students are done, they'll click the green button to head to the one-step post-assessment. This post-assessment would be done through the SMART responders so that students could take a look at their results. Immediately, they will see the results on their SMART responders. We'll also take the time to look at it on the board as a whole. It would be all anonymous, but we can see which questions we had some difficulty with. And then their ticket out the door is, just a great matching between word and description to see how they're doing with the vocabulary words And I think it's really important to remember this, what you do to one side of the equation, you do to the other. Keeping that balance of the equation part of it is really hard for students to understand, especially when we get to the more advanced of multi-step equations where they need to, combine like terms and getting all the variables to one side of the equal sign first. So thank you for taking a look at my presentation. Have a great day.